Today we're going to talk about what do you do if your liner's too short or you need to add some liner on, the piece of liner you got for your pond isn't big enough because you ended up digging a hole way bigger, anything like that. What do you do? We're going to talk about seaming on liner. We've got a pooling area where one of our waterfalls is going to drop into and our liner stops. This is the piece of liner we designated for the pond. We got a little bit of our stream, but now we need to continue on behind me into the mound as we excavate and build more waterfalls. So how do we make sure that the liner for the stream section going into the pond doesn't have any leaks? There's a couple of ways. One, you can do an overlap, and as long as the heights work out, that's perfectly acceptable. We do that a lot. But on this instance, we want to actually dig this part back a little bit and drop this section of liner down, so an overlap won't work. So we're gonna join two pieces of liner together to make them one, and that process is called seaming. To do that, we've got our piece of liner laid out. Underneath it is a flat board. This just gives us a hard, flat surface to work on because it's kind of hard to keep these wrinkles out of what you're doing. Now we just want to prep this surface. Some people use water, some people use an air gun just to dust it off. We like to go a little bit further. We use a tiny amount of lighter fluid on a clean rag, like this. Then we just start wiping down the area where our seam tape is gonna be applied. We just want a very clean surface to start with because we are going to make a chemical bond with the seam tape and the new piece of liner, and we just want as clean a surface as possible. You can see how dirty that liner is. Now this is brand new liner, and this is just dust and rubber and dirt from the factory, so we're just getting down to as clean of a surface as we possibly can. So we'll do this a couple of times, get the area nice and prepped. The seam tape that we're using is only a couple of inches wide, but there's multiple parts to this process, so we are over cleaning past where the seam tape is going to go, and you'll see why later. All right, so no matter how much you clean this, it's always going to be a little bit black. That's just the rubber coming up on the paper towel. As you can see, guys, the liner, especially when it's already installed in a pond and you're adding a seam later on, it's kind of hard to work with. It wants to wrinkle and fold, and you can't have that inside of your seam. So you got to be super careful, get this as flat as you possibly can. You definitely need another set of hands to help you with this process to make sure it goes correctly, because it's something that you don't want to do wrong, because then you'll have a leak. Let's say you're making a massive swim pond and you know your liner's not big enough, you need to put two of them together. You'd do this like on a big parking lot or a patio where it's completely flat, and you'd put those two brand new liners together before you even got in the pond, if you can, just to make it easier on yourself. When you're building custom features and things change as you go along, you never really know if you're gonna need more liner or what the case is gonna be. It kind of happens as you go. Mason opened up our can of primer. He stirred it up with our screwdriver. Now I'm going to get some rags. This stuff is super sticky and will stain your clothing and your skin. If you get it on your hardscaping, like your patio, you'll have a hard time getting it off. So just be careful with this stuff. You wanna get some on your paper towel. You can use a paintbrush. There's all sorts of different methods. If you put this stuff on a paintbrush, once it dries, it will be useless. So we just use rags. And this stuff primes the area, gets the rubber prepared to make a chemical bond. We want to make sure we get enough of this stuff all over the place. We're not trying to leave puddles behind, but we do want to really work it in. And as you go, it'll start to tack up and dry, which is totally fine because you don't want it super gooey. Something I've learned over the years, when you're done with the can, even if you're gonna need it in a couple of minutes, move it out of your way, because when you're doing this, you're focused and you knock that stuff over easily. And a can of that primer is pretty expensive, and you usually only have one on the job site. So if you knock that over, you're kinda screwed. So move that out of the way so you don't knock it over. Get your partner ready to help you start laying down your double-sided seam tape. All right, Mr. Mason, kinda grab that corner and just kinda make sure. We're gonna start over there and just kind of make sure that it's flat. So you wanna make sure that it's dry, just a little tacky at most, like this. You kind of wanna line up a straight path, start in one spot, push that down, and then you're just working it at the same time, avoiding creating any wrinkles for yourself, but staying on track. You don't wanna veer off and start going the wrong direction and get off of the primer you just laid down. And if you do mess up, you can adjust a little bit. But the biggest thing is making sure you're avoiding creating wrinkles as you go along. And then the person following behind you, we'll just start to really push this stuff down and work it in. You get to the end, you just give it a rip. Now you're done with that seam tape. You just want to go along, make sure that this is all worked down. There's no air bubbles. Like right here, I got a little air bubble. You just want to work that out, push the air out towards the side. Make sure there's no air bubbles and everything is nice and flat, no wrinkles. Really work this seam tape into the liner. Now there's a chemical reaction that happens between that primer and the rubber EPDM and now this new layer of seam tape. It will chemically bond and become one. And now this is prepped. So we're gonna leave the paper backing on for right now, and we're gonna set up our next piece of liner, which will be the streamliner that is going to overlap this. Okay, so you can see we've got our new streamliner down, and we have it where we're gonna be excavating, so we know it's going the right direction, it's in the right layout, and we have it overlapped the pond liner. Now we want to make sure our overlaps, whether we're doing a seam or we're just doing an overlap, you want the liner to go the direction the water is going to move. Water is going to travel this way, the overlap is going to go this way. You wouldn't want it to be the other way because then you're giving yourself a hang up, making the path of least resistance want to go this way and leak. So if you go this way, water's not going to want to travel back up. It can, and that's why we're doing this seam on this particular overlap, but if your drops are calculated correctly and you're definitely above water level, just doing a dry overlap like this would be fine. For this instance, we're going to do the seam. So we just want to make sure we've got a couple of inches of overlap. This is a little bit too much. And we don't need to go the whole length of the liner, just the section where we're going to be excavating. So we're nice and smooth. We're dusting it off. We've got a little bit of an overhang past our seam tape. What we want to do now, we're going to roll this back as such. And we're going to kind of repeat the process we did for the bottom liner. We're going to clean this off and prep it. Now that it's clean and it's dry, we want to go back through, get it primed and ready. We just used this, so we're not going to stir it again, but when you first open one of these cans, you don't want to shake it, you want to actually get in there and stir it really good, mix it all together. And just like before, we're gonna prime this side. We're gonna go a little crazy with the primer. That way we don't miss a spot. We just want to make sure we're going a little bit further than we need to, not leaving any big puddles, making sure everything's got a nice thin coat. You want to keep in mind, guys, this stuff is very potent. You want to make sure you're in a well-ventilated area when you're doing this because it is very toxic, and it's probably a good idea you guys wear gloves when you do this. It's not the best to get in your pores, in your skin. Definitely don't want to get it in your eyeballs, and I wouldn't eat it. If you get this on your skin, you're gonna have it there for at least a week. So we're gonna let this tack up for a few minutes. Sometimes, depending on the temperature outside, you might need to use a heat gun or a compressor with some air. You just want it to tack up. Like right here, that's super wet. You don't want that. Over here, it's starting to tack up, get sticky and dry. This is what you want it to look like. And while that's drying, we're gonna peel the paper backing off of our seam tape. So this is a double-sided seam tape. And if you're working in windy, sandy conditions, you wanna be careful not to let debris blow all over that. So get this as flat as you can. So now I'm going to start working it as such. This is a very tricky process because, again, we want to avoid any folds and wrinkles, which is very tough to do, but it's important that we take our time and do not have wrinkles. They will lead to leaks. You're gonna work out all those air bubbles that you may have just created. All right, so this is only part of the process and not even the most important step. So now we've got these two pieces of liner bonding together as one underneath, which is awesome. But now we need to use cover tape, which I will show you, which is what is actually gonna keep the water from going in between these two pieces. So once again, we're cleaning it with a little bit of lighter fluid. That first seam we did, we used that double-sided seam tape that you saw. Now we're gonna use a single-sided cover tape. And we are gonna do a rough measurement of what we need because it's easier to work with a smaller piece than a giant roll. Now we're gonna take this cover tape, we're gonna center our overlap seam. Like I said, guys, this stuff is super sticky. You want to try not to get it on your skin because it will be with you for quite a while. So we're going to let this tack up a little bit. We're going to work on making sure that it's flat. We grab our now mini roll of cover tape. We're going to start taking the paper off the back. Now this portion is also a 2-man job. So you hold the liner down, bud. And my boards are here. Am I centered?
Yep.
Ish.
I'm centered.
Pretty lined up. And now I'm gonna work my way. I'll work the paper. You just feed me the roll. Trying to keep that seam as close to the center of the cover tape as possible, avoiding the wrinkles. Now that it's on, you go back and you really want to work it down into the liner. This is chemically bonding to the liner as well. It's becoming one, and this part is the most important because this keeps water from ever even getting close to that seam tape. Really work it down. Feel the overlap of the liner underneath. Make sure it's pressed all the way down. No air bubbles, no wrinkles. What happens, guys, is if you get a wrinkle underneath this, it would create a canal, like an air channel, where water would be able to get to those two pieces of liner and over time work its way out. And our goal is to create a leak-free water feature. That's why this is important. Now, how far out do you want to go with your cover tape or your seam? Well, we know we're not going to be digging past this section right here. So all of this will go up and out of the pond, as well as this side over here. So this is plenty long enough. Wherever you're going to have the liner underneath water, you want to make sure that that is all seamed, and then up the sides and out a little bit. So you've got that extra security. Now keep in mind, guys, I have been doing this for almost 20 years. So I made it look a lot easier than it really is. And even I, to this day, still mess this process up sometimes because it is super complicated. Right now, we're in an atrium. We've got kind of like the perfect situation to show you how this works. So it went really easy, and I'm actually surprised there were no hiccups along the way. And I have had to redo seams before. We've even had seams totally installed, rocked in, pond was running, and then we did something wrong and didn't catch it during the installation process. And we've had to take that section apart and redo the seam. So this is a super important thing. It's not for everybody. If you want to try to tackle it yourself, that's why I made this video, so you have a reference. But this is definitely a pro level part of pond building. Really make sure you have the right materials. You set yourself up for success. You go slow, you make sure you check everything as you go, and just take your time with it. Don't be discouraged if you fail, because this is something I've failed at a lot over the years, and I'm sure we'll mess it up in the future moving forward. It takes a lot of time to get this skill down, and it's an important one if you're gonna make custom water features.